The Doctor Who Series 13 Flux finale has been and gone, and my oh my, what a disaster it was. Chibnall does have a track record of terrible finales, and this one was no exception. My partner and I prepared ourselves with plenty of alcohol, knowing what was in store, and we honestly had a great time laughing throughout most of it. This is probably the only positive thing about the Vanquishers. It's so bad, it's hilarious. I can't exactly say the same for Ranscore or Timeless Children, though that now has me thinking about concocting a triple Chibnall finale drinking game. Anyway, let's recap, shall we? How good was Series 13 at... Wait a minute. No, I think it will be better to leave that till the end when I hand out ratings. Allow me instead to take a minute to talk about my favorite VPN. Atlas VPN is a program and app that allows you to surf the net as though you were in a different country. It encrypts your connection, so when using public Wi-Fi, people aren't going to snoop on your activity. That's just the security end of things. It can also be used to access region-locked content. Atlas VPN grants you the ability to explore films and shows on Netflix that aren't available in your home country. It can also be used to access social media platforms and search engines that certain governments don't like. Atlas VPN boasts of unlimited devices, as well as working on Android, Windows, iOS, and macOS. They're still offering their famous deal of paying the equivalent of £1.04 per month when you get a 3-year membership. It's the holiday season, so they're throwing an extra 3 months in for free with this package. Click the Big Chungus link down below in the video description or comment section to grab this deal. Heck, it might even make a good gift. Hey, I just said what's wrong? Okay, fine. It'll make a fantastic holiday season gift. Thank you so much to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. This episode, as always, sorts out the sticky situation of all narrative branches within seconds. I'm sorry I have to keep saying this, but it's honestly a shame that the showrunners are so afraid to continue the intensity from last week for even a minute. This episode has some of the worst get out of jail free cards ever. Let's start with... The characters are initially seen taking cover from Sontaran blaster fire. Yaz suddenly remembers that one of the tunnels should never be opened and decides to open it with her newly found rope expertise. This was the first time in the episode I howled with laughter because of these lines. We're defenseless! We're never defenseless! This seemed to be a reference to Yaz's plot armor as she stood up in front of Sontaran fire with the potato people deciding to shoot elsewhere for the duration of her rope swinging. It's really weird as well. The direction of the blasts seems to indicate the characters are hiding on the wrong side of these boxes. The gang then plays Scooby-Doo in and out of the mystery doors. One of them conveniently led back to the present day where the TARDIS, Kate Stewart, and the Doctor just happened to be. Because of the Ood teleport and a near disintegration from Swarm, the Doctor has been triplicated, so she's basically everywhere at once. It felt like they were trying to outdo what happened to the Doctor in Journey's End, but the problems go deeper than just being a shameless ripoff. By having this done within the first 3 minutes of the episode, the tension of having 2 Doctorless narrative threads is made completely redundant. The mere fact of the TARDIS being here as well made me wonder how the Grand Serpent Sontaran alliance could have ignored such a glaring oversight. If the Sontarans were helping the Grand Serpent infiltrate units, surely the TARDIS would be kept under lock and key. To have Kate just magically show up here with the TARDIS makes her downfall in the previous episode feel utterly pointless.
That does not belong to you.
Do you think we're going to stop?
I feel like I shouldn't be laughing at this moment, but boy does him just appearing out of nowhere make me laugh. Was this intended to be a jump scare? They do this a second time later in the episode and it's just so fucking bizarre.
We have everything we need. The power to destroy your universe and you.
So does that mean the Ravagers basically wanted exactly the same thing as Tecteun: torment the Doctor with her memories and wipe out the universe she was in. The Sontarans were then seen broadcasting a consoling speech to the people of the universe and an invitation to their foes. Apparently this isn't inclusive of humanity and the Doctor though, and is actually just an invitation to the Cybermen and Daleks. It might have been nice if the show actually established the Sontarans being at war with Daleks and Cybermen prior to this episode, allowing room for the arch nemesis of the show to react to the invitation instead of just showing up because the story demands it. The Doctor conveniently shows up on the Lupari ship with Bell and Carvanista. They too have dispatched the Sontarans without so much as a scratch, but the bigger problem with this scene is the Doctor essentially stealing the limelight. It's just the way she babbles on about her circumstances as though nobody else is in the room. She then uses her sonic screwdriver to redirect the ship back to Earth, leaving a gaping hole in the shield and compromising the planet. The ship then hilariously kamikazed into the Sontaran shield. The fact neither Bell or Carvanista tried stopping her just blew my mind. The episode then displays a shot placed between the shield and the Earth. It's at this point I realised how little thought actually went into episode 1's get out of jail free card. First of all, my calculations of the exact area of these ships proves to be completely wrong. If they are this far away from the Earth's surface, the individual ships are going to be colossally larger than 10 football fields a pop. Secondly, just look at how bright the Earth is. If this shield is supposed to be protecting the Earth in totality, to the point that even one ship leaving is a problem,
You have broken shield unity. You are compromising Earth's protection. Earth's shield is now breachable.
how is the Earth lit up by sunlight right now? Le dark energy camera in Chile. A perfect luxury getaway holiday for all the family. The Doctor then gets shown the creepy house in the sky again, and this has to be one of the biggest disappointments this series has amongst all the others. It is infuriating to suggest that on top of one established barrier, that of the fob watch, there is another barrier to discovering the Doctor's lost memories. This fucking floating house in the sky. The fob watch being opened should take us straight to the memories. Instead, we just get Swarm destroying and rebuilding this house that has no significance or meaning to anybody whatsoever. It was goddamn hilarious seeing what is essentially a glorified buffer symbol in the sky, a perfect representation of Chibnall unable to make up his mind about what to do with last year's finale. We cut back to the present day where the Doctor learns about the Companion's grand tour.
How long has it been for you two? A few years.
Oh, like it was nothing. This would have been the perfect opportunity to explain how the Grand Tour was funded. Heck, we might have seen Yaz, Jericho and Dan resent the Doctor for not coming and getting them sooner. Instead, we get yet another soppy moment proclaiming Yaz to be such a great person without any justification. Oh my god, I can feel the deja vu coming on.
I think you're such an impressive young woman.
She was amazing. She is amazing.
Once again, there's no how or why to Yaz's character, decisions, abilities. She just is. The scene moves swiftly on to introducing the Doctor to Joseph Williamson. Suddenly, Williamson became just another exposition machine. I previously complimented how insane and erratic that combined character and performance appeared to be. Now that a teleporting woman has just appeared before him, he becomes so static and dull, repeating everything we already knew about him, all in service of this super cringy line.
Well done. Paul Hollywood handshake.
The Doctor then talks to Kate Stewart. Despite this being the first interaction the Doctor and Kate have, woman to woman, the Doctor's new gender gets ignored in favour of more exposition dumping. This leads the gang to investigate corner shops. Why?
Oh, metabolic processing. Lesser gravity. Restorative gas composition. That would provoke a predilection.
You any idea what she's talking about?
Not a clue.
Don't you mean, budget. Hilariously, the Sontarans are back in Liverpool displaying a whole bunch of leftover B-roll footage from episode 2. For some fucking reason, Chibnall decided to establish the Sontarans as having a thing for chocolate. I'm not making this shit up, and I still can't make up my mind if this is the single funniest or stupidest thing the show has ever come up with. In the context of a series finale, it's pretty stupid. I don't know how on earth the BBC managed to get away with all this product placement right here. But at the same time, Dan Starkey lives up to being the greatest Sontaran performer ever. Even the Doc and the companions do a great job of making this deal of handing over psychic people in exchange for more chocolate very entertaining, especially seeing as it was the same tactics seen in episode 2. Back to the Doctor and Pet Pooch, they sort of established Carvanista as being a companion. There was some promise the moment he said that talking about his time as a companion would kill him. It seemed to imply something truly awful happened on their adventures that he would rather not relive. But no, he will literally die if he talks about his time spent with the Doctor. It's certainly a familiar tale of a companion being abandoned by the Doctor only to have her crash back into their life like nothing happened, but it didn't do enough to make the potential emotion of this scene flourish. The Sontarans and Grand Serpent come along for some interrogation. They start by claiming that all the Lupari were ejected into space.
Every Lupar on those ships airlocked out into space. Their bodies now scatter the space lanes. Every single one. Dead.
This line is just taken as gospel both in terms of the story and the characters. I had a hard time believing this statement myself after seeing one Lupari fight several Sontarans at once on multiple occasions. There are 7 fucking billion of them, and yet only one has the ability to fight Sontarans? When the Doctor once again believes what could potentially be a flat-out lie...
Carvanista, I'm so sorry.
I'm just left scratching my head at how gullible these two characters are. They honestly could have used this proclaimed genocide as a trick to weaken Carvanista's resolve, but it's something that is just accepted throughout the remainder of the episode. I just can't believe how literal the script is. Cybermen and Daleks, you're invited to a party that's obviously a trap. They show up. Carvanista, we killed your whole species off screen. No other Lupari are even seen in the series anyway, so who fucking cares? An indeterminable distance away, the Ravagers are still teasing the Doctor about when she's going to die. Azure has this big monologue about basically nothing. All that the pair have done is change the epicenter of the flux, moving it from Earth to Atropos so that they can make the Doctor watch the universe die over and over again.
A constant, destructive loop. On a loop.
All I gather is that the Doctor watching the universe collapse, rebuild and collapse again in the same style as Swarm does with the House would be torture to her. But that's it. That's all the Ravagers want, apparently. Meanwhile, in that dream space place where the Doc and Swarm had a chat in episode 1, the Passenger is seen. Inside him, Vinda and Diane are running around like headless chickens. And I mean that because neither of them even know why they are running to begin with. We get spoon-fed more stupid information about this place that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme at all. As though Vinda has nothing better to do, which in fairness he really doesn't, he gets told to jump into the river, and the pair were then transported to a blue forest, which just looked horrible. Not in a, oh my god, I wouldn't want to be there kind of horrible. This whole scene just hurts my eyeballs. They found a glowing yellow puddle, and thankfully, Vinda knows all about glowing yellow puddles.
It's a bioform. It's a combination of organic and machine. But these are the internal tech systems.
What are you talking about?
You should teach at the academy.
Oh my god. Laser tag and finding yellow puddles is how you get into piloting school? My god, if only real life worked like that.
These systems, they seem to control those steps where you came in. If you disrupt the systems, the steps become active, but it's self-repair, so they're only there a limited time.
You any idea what she's talking about?
Not a clue.
Vinda then shoots the yellow puddle, and suddenly they're running up the stairs where they met each other and...
We're out! Nice work.
That was easy.
Inside the Sontaran ships in Chile, apparently all the psychic Sontarans are unavailable right now, so Jericho and Claire will do. I really don't understand the purpose of their involvement in this episode, aside from watching each character take a psychic load. Oh my god. The Doctor also winds up being hooked up to a machine that looks oddly reminiscent of when the Ninth Doctor was interrogated in the episode Dalek. They accidentally seemed to get the characterization of the Doctor right in this scene. Jodie seemed to show a sense of humour for once. It was nice that even though she was the one in the chair, it appeared as though she was the one doing the interrogating. It was a shame that this was done to such an overbearing degree that not one question came out of the Grand Serpent's mouth. Everyone then gets out of Chile quick smart, with Bell planting some doohickey in a machine. This was able to pick up the Sontaran advert we saw at the beginning. The Doctors put their heads together and that somehow identifies that the flux is made of antimatter, taken from outside the universe. After the convenient escape, the Sontarans are getting ready for departure themselves.
The Doctor was in here! She rescued herself! I just need to trace all recent readings of Artron energy around the Earth.
Daddy, I need to use the laptop now. All my friends are playing Roblox without me.
Be quick.
Of course. Kate Stewart.
Well, firstly, I don't even see how Kate enters into the picture here. I thought you attempted to have her killed last episode. You would surely want to know that your attempt was successful, right? No? The Serpent is then seen at some fucking train depot talking to some lad. There's something so hilariously pointless about this character. Maybe I can't unsee this performer outside of comedy, but the fact they attempt to make his character all serious continually fell flat on its face. His final scene is just the biggest punchline of the entire episode. Vinder and Kate wind up holding him at gunpoint and guide him into a door that leads to a fucking rock in space, which apparently has air and is dense enough to have Earth-like gravity. Oh, it's so cute, him being exiled like Vinder, but the lack of characterization on the part of the Grand Serpent leads to him not even having anything to say once he's been dealt with. What a waste. So Vinder and Di are now in the dreamscape, which somehow allows him to call the Doctor. The Doctor then arrives, talks pointlessly at the passenger for about 20 seconds, and gets the pair out quick, smart. It's not exactly made clear if her talking to the passenger was what allowed the TARDIS inside, but my god, every rescue in this episode feels so damn easy. There's absolutely no tension in the Sontaran's base or inside the passenger when this sort of shit happens. It makes the reunion of the two series power couples feel so unearned, on top of them all being two-dimensional planks of wood. The Doctor and Yaz then go back to Kate Stewart, and the scene is just the biggest exposition dump I've ever seen. I don't really know why it begins with Kate just being brought up to speed with what the Sontarans are doing.
What?
Only to have the Doctor speculate about why the Sontarans are luring Cybermen and Daleks to the final Flux event, which, as usual, turns out to be absolutely on the money.
Here's what I think they're doing. If they manage to wipe out the entire assembled armies of Cybermen and Daleks, then that would reverberate across civilizations. Sontarans as the ultimate vanquishers.
What fucking civilizations are going to be left after the Flux has rolled its way back through the universe? But Yaz has already thought of this.
Everything still gets destroyed by the Flux.
And the explanation is just baffling. The combination of a Lupari shield with all the Daleks and Cybermen in existence showing up in one place will cancel out the Flux. Only because my understanding of physics doesn't go beyond GCSE level, hearing Kate and the Doctor lecture Yaz about how antimatter and matter work made me want to fall asleep. Once again, this is where the principle of showing and not telling gets completely ignored in favour of just spouting dialogue that isn't emotionally engaging but quite frankly alienating. I think the blame lies more on the idea that delivering this information in an interesting way wasn't done, so it hurts the episode's resolution as a result. So, the Sontarans warped away from Earth, placed close by to the Lupari shield. The Doctor lays out her battle plan, and for some reason they couldn't get Jodie in this shot right here, appearing as though they just copied and pasted a still image of her face looking directly into the camera on top of a double. It looks so fucking sus. Next up, Jericho and Claire need to get themselves off the Sontaran ship. The Doctor gave them some teleporting using rings earlier, and apparently Jericho has really thin fingers because his goes flying off his hand and into the wall. A Sontaran then shoots it as though he magically knew it was right at his feet, leaving Jericho stuck on the ship. Meanwhile, all the Daleks and Cybermen ships showed up looking like they hired the same visual effects artists as those on Rise of Skywalker. It was equally baffling to see standard rank and file members of those species essentially speaking as these armies' leaders. The Dr. Bell and Carvanista are once again seen on a Lupari ship, where they change the shield to allow the Flux to kill everyone, including the Sontarans. Now, this moment to me is pretty bad, and it's not just because it's so difficult to even comprehend the idea of a universe-destroying cataclysm selectively wiping Doctor Who villains out of existence. It's more that the Doctor actively allows a genocide to take place. I remember a month ago the Doctor having a go at a human general for essentially blowing up the Sontaran army just as they were fleeing. I also remember in this very episode the Doctor saying this.
Ex-leader or dictator, you've got that air of entitlement, probably responsible for any number of genocides. How am I doing?
I also remember the Doctor ridding the Earth of dangerous villains in equally questionable ways in the past, but this video is already too fucking long to bother with a big exploration of that. The point being that the Doctor in this series has just completely flipped on her principles. I assume it's because the Lupari were all killed off screen, as she doesn't seem to oppose this line and consequent actions whatsoever.
You are not in control. We are, and this is for my people.
I'm not even mad she allowed the Daleks and Cybermen to die either. They made so little impression this series, leaving their destruction to have as much excitement as a recorded fireworks display. Plus the Daleks are coming back for the New Year's special again anyway, so... Moving on, just before the big cleansing of the universe, we see Jericho have his final moments. What's more saddening than his death was how great of a character he was in the Angels episode, only to be given a terrifically small and insignificant role in future episodes. His dialogue isn't bad either, and in fact the music that plays beneath his death is probably the first time that Segun Akinola's score gave me goosebumps. The problem is that right after his death, there's a shot of Yaz with more pipette tears ready to pour away, and yet despite spending 3 fucking years with the man, she says nothing. She didn't even try to save him.
I think you're such an impressive young woman.
She was amazing. She is amazing.
Adding insult to injury is how the Doctor just magically teleports a passenger right in front of the TARDIS, soaking up the remaining flux. Was I laughing at all this complete bullshit? You can bet your ass I was. So after all that nonsense, the Ood gives the Doctor a fat-ass mojito to calm her down. This gives her the courage to confront the Ravagers, who decide they're going to take her to Atropos to witness the end of the universe. The 2 Ravagers kept mentioning this saviour character called Time, which naturally had me even more confused than before. Because Time is not only a force that the Mori kept a control of, not only a human construct that identifies the future and the past, not only the name of a planet, but some fucking individual is called Time too, who takes on the appearance of the nearest dickhead. Why personify Time? What was it all for? Just to tease the return of the Master? What a fucking joke. And they've done that before. They did it in the 2009 specials. All the characters on board the TARDIS then get dropped off to their respective places. Claire and Kate get dropped off, and my god.
I like this regeneration.
Yeah, you'd fit right in on Twitter. Dan's apparently back trying to be an unofficial tour guide. I thought this to be a missed opportunity for him to start spreading the truth about the real purpose of the tunnels. Instead, he just claims that nobody really knows the purpose to this bunch of tourists. It was good the episode avoided the cliche of Dan and Di getting together right after the adventure though. In fact, they seem to accidentally use visuals to explain Dan's feelings right right here. It leads Dan right back to the TARDIS though. Dan then vanished in the very next shot, and the Doctor apologised for being all secretive to Yaz. This moment ends the episode on a rather mixed note. On the one hand, the build-up of the series about the Doctor being a Division operative is basically melted into a puddle of piss on the floor by doing this. On the other, this may be Chibnall basically saying, yeah, I literally have no idea how to dig myself out of this hole I've dug. Let's just forget the whole thing. And I am more than fine with that. Shame it took you 6 whole episodes to say so, and I'm not really a forgiving and forgetting kind of guy. And that's why I'm about to breeze through all the episodes again and hand out ratings. So, did they suck? I think the strongest aspect of the first episode is probably the potential of the characters established. Claire, Dan, Carvanista, Joseph Williamson, the Ravagers, and the Sontarans are all introduced as key players in this episode. I firmly believe now that the imminent destruction of the entire universe should have been something built up over the course of the series, not introduced flat out as a cliffhanger. To have the flux and then conjure up a final wave later on diminishes the impact of this first episode's ending. There are a few entertaining moments, but overall it doesn't start things off very strongly. Too many budget constraints, the crappy dialogue, and the forced relationship between Yaz and the Doc really make the episode a drag. Even our new companion's role as a plasterer and overall poor man gets completely forgotten beyond the first few scenes with him. I still am completely lost about what the hell was going on with Azure and the Arctic Circle as well. Chibnall himself doesn't appear to be sure as to what exactly was going on in their past either.
Swarm and Azure, I think, historically were sworn enemies of the Doctor. They imprisoned Swarm on a prison planet in that cage we see in episode 1. I feel like they also put Azure into this sort of brutal memory wipe witness protection on Earth, where she's been held prisoner to separate her from Swarm.
If Division's aim was to keep them separated, how did Swarm know where to find her? I would definitely say this first episode in hindsight doesn't work beyond promising good things for future episodes. I give the Halloween Apocalypse a 3 out of 10. Kinda a hot take on this one. It's fine. It's historically interesting, but missed a massive opportunity with the Sontarans being time travelers and only really used it for that map of Sontar in East Asia. The Sontarans do make a rather impressive return in the past, thanks to the leading and wounded Sontarans and their respective performers. However, their presence in the present is underwhelming to say the least. Mary Seacole as a character was sorely in need of being more than the best art student in the class, but simultaneously the approach wasn't as frustrating as previous historic episodes in the era. Unfortunately, why Dan, Vinda, and Yaz were teleported to their respective places never gets explained in or after this episode. I give War of the Sontarans a 5 out of 10. Oh boy, the filler episode. I liked the premise, some of the performances, some of the design, and that's basically it. This episode has a serious dependence on expository dialogue, as well as a bunch of missed opportunities to make the companions' backstories interesting. Even the Doctor became a completely unlikable character by the end of this episode. Bell's segments are tainted by the fact the Flux's impact wasn't as impressive as advertised. Things that might have made Bell an interesting character never really get established. Instead, she's just an excuse to highlight never before seen parts of the universe that have now been kinda destroyed. There has to be a certain reason why characters like Bell and Vinda know about Daleks, Cybermen, and TARDISes. And you can't just say that the performers are massive fans of Doctor Who, because that's essentially making the actor the character. The pair just fell prey to becoming Mary Sue characters. All the stuff with the Maury, both past and present, didn't impress or interest me much either. Beyond this episode as well, I don't remember the internal manipulation of the console room with the additional and disappearing doors ever getting an explanation either. I give Once Upon Time a 3 out of 10. I think it is generally agreed upon that this is the best episode of Series 13. I think some would even say it's the best of the era. It's fairly obvious why, but given that it's wedged in the middle of all the Flux and Division bullshit, it's sadly not going to stand the test of time. It's a massive improvement on the teasy Weeping Angels segment seen in previous Flux episodes, and we get treated to a full blast of Weeping Angel action too. I understood the scope of the village, the characters that lived in it, and the impact of the Angels on the community as a whole. It's visually impressive, with Jericho and Claire's psychic shenanigans being equally interesting and fitting additions to the story. A woman being taken over by one of Who's most famous monsters is certainly a Chibnall favourite though, and various other aspects let this episode down, like not enough characters struggling not to blink, Angels communicating, Angels working for Division, and the scene that must not be named. Oh yeah, there's also Bell and Vinder's scenes. Chibnall actually confirmed that the people on this planet were humans.
So in taking the humans who have been made homeless, Azure and Passenger come along, kidnapped all those humans.
Which just makes no sense because this is still the 21st century. How the hell are there humans on interplanetary colonies when we haven't even put a man on Mars yet? Sadly, this episode can't really stand on its own 2 feet despite it desperately trying to do so. I give Village of the Angels a 6 out of 10. And then everything went back to business as usual. Actually, credit where it's due, this has some of the makings of a good semi-final episode. It's just largely tainted by the hilariously bad location hopping with the companions, right up until Joseph Williamson showed up, and then the quality picked back up again, accompanied by the unit's origin story, which was mostly positive, and some of the intrigue posed by the Division setup. The episode's final act made up for some of the bullshit, like the Ravagers using their hostages just to make a teleport.
Swarm and Azure have used the psycho-temporal energy of those humans to build a bridge back to where the Doctor and Tecteun are in Division.
A lack of world building on the one world that matters more than any other, and Vinder and Bell's continually pointless appearances. I give Survivors of the Flux a 4 out of 10. And, as you can probably imagine, the finale was undoubtedly the worst episode of the bunch. The culmination of nearly every narrative strand in this series basically amounted to nothing. The Ravagers just wound up being a couple of aimless clowns. Vinder and Diane's escape from the Passenger was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. The Grand Serpent is a fucking joke, and Kate Stewart's inclusion was more than disappointing. The frankly suicidal and genocidal plans of the Doctors give me more reason to dislike this incarnation, and the big showdown at the end left me emotionally unaffected. Doctor Who Flux has just been left unattended in the pan with a burnt exterior and an undercooked inside. I give the Vanquishers a 1 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. This is my final production of 2021. I'm very much looking forward to reviewing Series 7 as well as revisiting the Capaldi era next year, so make sure you're subscribed so you'll be the first to be notified about future content from me. I'd also like to personally thank my patrons for continuing their support of the channel throughout the long and arduous journey of this year. Keep an eye out on my community tab over the next few days because I'm going to be putting a poll out for which Patreon exclusive video I'll be making public on Christmas Day. I hope you all have a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year. Now, without further ado, let's play some outtakes. Heck, we might have seen Yaz, the Doctor, and Dan resent her. Oh, blimey. The scene moves swiftly on to reducing... No. Meanwhile, all the Dalek and Cybermen Meanwhile, all the Daleks and Cybermen ships showed up. Oh, that is a tongue twister and a half. Not only a human construct to identify the humans... Oh shit.